Hi, Danielle. It's so great to have you here for this episode of Founder Voices. I'd love to just kick it off if you can start by introducing yourself and where you're at with Ancora AI today.
I'm Danielle Ralic, I'll give my full title as I like to think of it, but founder, CEO, and CTO. I don't put all of those ever on a slide, but that's really how I operate. AI is an AI-driven digital clinical trial navigation platform, and we're aiming to modernize and accelerate patient recruitment. And our mission was really to unlock access to clinical trials so that all patients have the opportunity to participate. And we are focused in the world of oncology or cancer. Currently, we have partnerships with 50 patient organizations, 5 global scientific organizations, and we help about 5,000 cancer patients a month between North America and Europe find clinical trials. I think we've supported over 400 patients to get to a trial to date. I'd say we're not, I don't know, you kind of say a startup because I guess I started working on the tech or the AI model in 2018. But we launched officially in 2020. So we've been officially 5 years on this journey. So I think we're a little bit past early startup, but we're not scale up. So I don't know what that middle valley is, but that's where I'd put us.
First, let's just start a bit with the why. So, what was it that sparked the idea for Ancora AI, and got you started on working on the data model in 2018? And what did you hope to achieve?
Yeah, so I studied information systems with a specialty in healthcare, and I really loved tech. I just didn't know what a career in tech was. And I loved healthcare because you help so many people with what you do. So I was lucky enough to find this intersection of those two worlds, and I really thought tech and healthcare would help bring it to the next level and help with personalized care or just more efficient, effective care. I was in a few consulting firms working in Boston, Los Angeles, and Zurich, and my projects were with hospitals, with public health departments, and large pharma companies, looking at supporting them for analytics or tech programs. And I had a lot of wonderful experience seeing that, but I was also super frustrated with what we're building, and I didn't particularly feel like we were moving the needle. And at the same time, it's such like a tale of two worlds. You're deep in the innovation of some big pharma company talking about really incredible things, and then you go to the doctor, or your family goes to the doctor, and you just see reality, to be totally honest, and just how far we have to go. And I've always wanted to build something that had an impact, and I had tried through these organizations, and I came across this issue of patient recruitment personally and professionally. So professionally, when I was supporting a pharma company who had this issue of finding patients for their trials. Personally, when cancer hit my family and I was on the databases trying to figure out how do I find the right trials for this person, and breast cancer has thousands of trials, and it just hit me so hard because you're also in a very vulnerable place, feeling like you can't do anything. I also had this incredible moment hiking where I happened to meet a man who was living with stage 4 cancer and living well. We were both hiking in Patagonia, so that's already quite telling. But he was there, and he was quite open about it. He said it's because of a clinical trial that he found through really a set of luck, like just really pure luck. And so I thought, I've been building natural language processing models for other purposes. I think I could put it on trials data and help more patients access it. And so I started building what I wanted. I didn't know anything about starting a company, so I came in incredibly naive. I took my savings, my life savings, and used that to start the company. I didn't know what it took to raise money and all those things. I knew what I wanted to build. I knew there was a business behind it. And I thought, if I just keep sitting on the sidelines, I'm going to be really frustrated with myself in 10, 20 years when maybe it's too late to start something like this. And I have the energy. I feel really passionate about it. And I think I have the tech capability, so why not give it a shot? Worst case, I learn a lot, expand my network, try new things. Best case, make a really big difference in some people's lives. So that's how it all kind of got started. There's this image someone used once for a startup, which is like jumping off a rock and kind of hoping like you land in the right water or land somewhere else on the other side. And it really feels like that, where you just run at it. And if you can't doubt yourself, I don't know if you have any Harry Potter fans, but it's like platform 9 3/4. It's like if you don't believe, like you're not gonna make it. So you've got to have a lot of belief to at least take that like run or that first sprint.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that image. I love Harry Potter, so you've definitely got me on there. And so looking back at, you said you're 5 years in, so it is still early, but if you think about those earlier days, how did you mentioned you were kind of naive going into it. How did you picture it, and how did reality compare in, both directions?
I thought it would be a lot simpler. I thought, I can build this tech. If I can build the tech, of course people will be interested and people will listen, and we'll take it from there. I didn't believe in myself fully, so I brought on 2 co-founders because I felt lonely, like I didn't really have the expertise to be able to do this. And that helped a bit. Having people to bounce ideas off is really great. And we can get more into what can happen. But I think I had expected the journey to be more linear. And I had come from working in consulting for almost 15 years. I mean, I did a lot of projects. I knew what it took to manage projects and budgets and things like that. So I'd say I feel really lucky that I had that pretty solid discipline going in. But just because you say you want to do it, or it's your goal, or it's a milestone, doesn't mean you hit it. And then that's where everything just starts to kind of unwind, where it's, am I doing this right? Am I planning this right? How did I totally miss this? Like, what assumptions am I making that are totally incorrect? How do I even tell if I'm making the right decisions? Mm-hmm. And there's so much that just starts unraveling when it's really just like you lose all organization or all structure in your life. And then that's where it was really challenging for me to try to figure out my path. Is it the right path? And keep asking myself, is it the right path to course correct? So lots of thoughts on that topic, but I'd say from I never watched Silicon Valley, thank God, or anything like that before I started, so I didn't have a picture of, going to events and what it would be like to pitch and do all these things, or what it would be like to meet investors. They're definitely a much more special bunch than I ever could have guessed, but yeah, everything was a little bit of a negative surprise, I would say, on the journey, but I hope I can share those experiences so everyone at least has a better heads up than I did.
I mean, experience is the best teacher. And so it's about how do you kind of bounce back or pivot or recognize, like you were saying, when it's time to pivot, and then move quickly to learn, right? It's about that learning process more so than I got everything right the first time, right? Which great if you did, but the skill is more in being able to learn really fast and then iterate. So sounds like lots of opportunity in the journey. You mentioned bringing in co-founders. What was that process like?
Yeah, I thought about people I like working with. I think one thing I definitely wanted to do was hire and be around people that I enjoyed. So people that I liked and people that complemented my skills. So I definitely bring more on the tech side and more general kind of consulting, project management, healthcare, but I didn't have a science background. And so one of the co-founders that I brought on was someone who did have a PhD in genetics, so that was really helpful for what we were doing with precision medicine. And another who was more into just operations, just wanted to figure out how to make things work and how to go from there. I was lucky that I had worked a long time, so I had a lot of people in my network, so I didn't need to do any of these formal interviews. I was also at a time where in our careers, you hit a point where it's like, what do I do different or next? And so I was able to find people who had been in consulting long enough, just thinking I want to do something different. And I would say it's really hard because you don't have a lot to offer. So it's just like, hey, do you want to go on this really crazy journey? I'm not sure I know what I'm doing, and I'm not sure we know what we're doing, but I'll give you some equity and a really low paycheck, like a paycheck you had when you were an intern, and I hope we can make something happen. So it's a really tough sell, and I really feel for people who are trying to find co-founders. I mean, there's a lot more I wish I thought about when I did it, but for me, I think it was almost like a psychological comfort that I needed the most, because I didn't believe in myself. I didn't think I could do it, and I just wanted someone by my side. And I had, before I brought them on, I think it had been a year and a half, and I had panic attacks every night, like 4 a.m., heart racing, can't sleep, like lost hair, you name it. And then just having people, it just felt like I could take some of that weight off my shoulders and put it on theirs. So yeah, there wasn't probably the best process to think about it or vet it, but you also don't have so much at your disposal. So thankfully, network was really helpful.
Wow. First of all, thanks for sharing that so openly to have made that decision and to bring folks on board. Are there any other criteria or things that you would do differently if you were to do that again?
Yes. And I really like them. I mean, they've left since, so there's a whole story in between. But yeah, I really appreciated all their help, and we had some really great times together. So I think they were fantastic. If I could rewind and talk to young Danielle, I would just say no, like just stick it out. You will be okay. Believe in yourself. Because the thing that I totally underestimated was that what I was building was something that I really wanted. And I've been wanting it since I had even come into contact with healthcare, knowing it wasn't great. It had failed me, it had failed my friends, it had failed my family. That was something burning in me that I wanted to solve no matter what. And when things get really hard, and it will get really hard, unless you happen to be super fortunate to launch with like 20 million out of the gate, not many people do, but when it gets hard, if you're the only one with that passion, it won't work, and it's not gonna work. And that's something, it's really hard to find a co-founder who's like, yeah, come hell or high water, we're gonna make this work. And that's how I felt about it. I didn't ask them those questions. I was just so excited to have someone to help me, and so grateful that they would be open to taking this chance with me. And yeah, I don't regret it, but if I could do it again, I would have probably just done it on my own. It did help me a little bit because being a woman leading a company, you don't get a lot of credibility. So one of my co-founders was male, and that actually really helped a lot. I wish that wasn't the criteria for being taken seriously, but I think that was something else that was kind of silly. I'm super grateful to him. I don't want it to come off as anything else, but I think just that I wish I had that understanding of when things get hard, is this going to be something that they're going to want to stick around with? And is it also fair to them? And so if you find people who like are just going to make this happen with you no matter what, like that would be the best co-founder you can bring on. It's a luxury though. I don't know. It's really hard to find people like that.
There's a whole other area to unpack there. There's a piece that you mentioned around why you felt like you wanted to bring other folks in related to the level of confidence that you had at that point and where you are now today, because you are now a solo founder. Can you just talk a little bit about like how you built up that confidence or moved through that to continue as a solo founder as well?
Yeah, I think I hit rock bottom to be able to come back, have my own metamorphosis to somebody who's much stronger and confident. And I think when you survive a lot of that, you really come back feeling unbreakable. But a lot of things hit. We had the pandemic hit, which was where our whole business model was around cancer and clinical trials, and no one spoke about cancer in this period. So that was about a year where we really sat there and said, I don't know how we survive this. But we all tried, my co-founders and I, we tried different ideas and strategies just to keep us going. And I followed all the books, bought all the books, listened to the webinars, went to all the accelerators, how to have a business, had all those steps planned out. And then, yeah, you don't plan for a pandemic ever. So that was one where no book was going to help you survive that. And yeah, they just make it seem like you do these 4 things and you're ready, and then magically you get investment. It never worked out like that. None of their advice ever. I mean, I can tell you how much time I lost on Tim Tam and like, do you really understand your addressable market? So just putting these 3 numbers together, I think was months of my life. And now I had wished, like, I just didn't give a shit about it, because all I needed to do was focus on building my business. And that's what I wish I learned. But yeah, then my co-founders left, I mean, personal reasons. So Also, I mean, when things get hard, they get hard, but I'm fortunate enough that I have a husband who can help me out too when things get tough, personally and financially. Not everyone has that, or if you're going to start families, like a startup is not a very family-friendly endeavor, so there's also a lot of life that kind of comes in between. But going through, we had a little bit of funding, thinking we were on track to a pandemic, to having to let go of some of the team, then losing 2 co-founders. I mean, I hit rock bottom. At that point, I just thought, like, what am I doing? I left an amazing career of doing AI and healthcare and consulting. I mean, you can imagine what that's like, to having a paycheck less than what I had in my first year starting work like 15 years ago. And nothing really to show for it, if I'm going to be really honest. Like, I built my solution, I had some people using it, but I didn't have the big investment. I didn't have big contracts or anything like that, and I really had a tough moment where it was like, you know, what am I doing? I did everything the book said. I've been through 6 accelerators. 6. That's insane. It was so silly, but I really didn't feel like I was doing it right, because I had hundreds of meetings with investors, and you chase investors, and you just get no's in all sorts of flavors. Not all of them are kind either, so people telling you, like, why you? They don't believe in your tech, they don't believe in you. And that really destroys you in so many ways. That was the lowest point of my life, I'd say, period. And especially when you came from a career where you were okay. I wasn't the best in my company, but I was doing all right. I was getting promoted and going through and doing big things. And it really forced you to think about stuff. And my darkest point, I texted one of the patients we work with, he's a cancer patient. I just said, look, I don't know if we're gonna make it. And it was a really tough call. And this is like that decision, like, do I stop or not, is a really, 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 really hard one to make, especially when it's something you're just like so passionate about doing. And he just texted me back, it's always darkest before the dawn, hang in there. And getting that from a cancer patient who's faced death, I think he's faced death like 20 times, woke me up. And I was like, okay, Danielle, like, just figure it out. Like, what do you need? And I forgot all the books, forgot all that stuff. Just like, what do you need for this business to work? Like, number one, it's about helping people get to trials. Let's help get more people. Let's figure out what I need to do to make that more effective. And if I keep serving the patients and these users, I'll figure it out. And the patients helped me out. They've been everything, and they jumped in. But then being able to come back and have some of those wins. And we had our first patient that we were told joined one of the trials and had an amazing response, has like 10 more years of life. You know, it is just little moments like that where you think, like, okay, yeah, this is a win, and this is worth it. And after a couple of those wins, and then also long enough where all the pitch competitions where you see people pitch and you think, like, oh my God, like, that is not a good idea. Then after a couple of years, you see a lot of those that, you know, had a ton of attention and, you know, lights and shiny things, and then they dim out, and they keep dimming out. And if you just stay heads down, just focus. Like, I let the competitors and watching everything else happen, like, really drag me down, but with the focus and then seeing, like, and being able to stop and look back and see that progress, and like, I survived it, like, and I'm doing okay. And we see more and more patients coming to the platform, and more things happening, more opportunities coming. But then you just feel invincible. Then you're like, oh, okay. And then I get, you know, you get someone like, you know what you should do? And I'm like, yep, not listen to you. Thank you. Like, I got it. So it feels pretty great now, but really hell of a journey to get to that point.
It sounds like it was a bit of a perfect storm, so to speak. What I take away from that is, one, you never know where you're gonna get that voice or that inspiration, and hearing it from a patient is so grounding, because that's what you wanted to do, right? What you set out to do. I also take away that, like, you know what, you need to keep focused on building, because there's so many distractions. And so having a really, really good filter of, here's what is just noise, and then, you know what, too bad. Okay, is there a lesson here or not? If not, then forget about it and just keep going and keep building, because the results will come. And when you get those signals, you also gotta listen and celebrate them.
Oh my God, yes to all of that. The distraction is where I definitely lost years of all of them. And I didn't know what I was doing. So I approached it, I'd say, like, academically. They always say you need to meet 100 investors to get your one investor. So it's like, okay, numbers game. I meet 100, and then you chase and try to get 100. And it's not really a numbers game. If you want to think of it as a numbers game, 2% of funding goes to female founders, so there's your number. Don't bother. It's like such a waste of time. And it's really hard because you think, oh, I just need a network. I need to keep learning. Like, it's the next conversation might be the conversation that unlocks everything. It brings me to the next investors or brings me to the next hospital or helps me with something. And I wasted so much time, and I took everyone's advice because I thought so little of myself. So took everyone's advice, and then you really just get so much noise that it just feels like a fog around you, where it's like, where do you go? And I wish I just said, okay, like, what do you want to do? What is that? And then make every decision around that. Like, will this move me forward? Yes or no? Like, I went to all of those accelerators, all of these events, and if I'm honest with myself, they didn't really get me anything. Like, they didn't get me new deals. I mean, the medical conferences, sure, that's very different. But all these pitch events, if anything, it kind of makes you feel worse about yourself. So it's like, they're super tough, and you chase all of that. You try to do everything humanly possible to give it your best effort. And then you feel guilty when you're not spending like every waking hour trying to network one more thing or like sending out one more invite to try to get on someone's radar. But it's so unhealthy, and you tire yourself out, and for what? And I had a really good female founder who woke me up, and she's like, why do you keep doing this to yourself? What has come of it? Tell me one good thing. And when I couldn't, she was like, do you see my point? I was like, oh my God, yes. So really learned the hard way, but that's the greatest skill, but the hardest to do in the beginning.
How do you approach it differently today? How do you approach it today in a way that doesn't take the same kind of toll on you and gets the results that move the needle?
Yeah, definitely still figuring it out, but I probably have more on what's not working, or what I at least know to say no to, which is helpful. I've learned I'm not really good at networking. I'm really bad at just randomly talking to people and trying to pitch myself or whatever. So if there's a conference where I don't have a poster or I won't be presenting something, then I've learned those aren't really efficient for me or effective for me, since you're just lost in this crowd. You spent so much money to be there. Now you have to try to chase people, and usually at conferences people are chasing other people, so you're trying to chase people who are on their own agendas, and it could be like a couple €1,000 later and you're thinking, yeah, I don't think I needed to have done that. And the people that I think are really sneaky are the ones that'll say like, they'll have some sort of job and then like investor also in their LinkedIn title, and they reach out to you, and those were the ones that really catfished me in the beginning. So you keep thinking like, it's like business mentor / investor, and you're like, oh, okay, if they like me enough, they might invest in me. No, you can put an investor even if you do nothing, or if you give somebody a €5,000 check and don't take anyone's €5,000 check, that's nothing. And you can do projects on the side or get a part-time job and cover that yourself without giving away your company. So it's like those people that eat up a lot of your time. And they always start, if anyone ever read the dating book called The Game, they do a lot of this called negging, where they tell you basically how you need so much help and you don't know what you're doing and blah, blah, blah. But they can help you, and they'll only take a % of your company, and then, they'll fix everything. So that was where I hung up. I remember one of the calls and I just thought, well, that's bizarre. So I'm really bad at everything and my company isn't going to make it, but they want a piece of it. They want some equity. So you just think like, okay, something's a little off there. And I think one of the things that I've finally learned 5 years later is that your time is your most fragile resource, and your time and energy, both of those. And so if people take up your time or give you really bad energy, those are things you really have to say no to as soon as possible. And there's a lot of people, especially if they see you successful in certain areas, that really leech on, and it takes a lot to recognize that and just say like, is this person giving me positive energy, or do I feel like I'm moving forward, or are they sucking that up, or I get incredibly frustrated, or whatever else it might be. And I've become a lot stricter about that. And that's been really helpful to my mental health, to my just time and schedule. And then when you have the time back, you see how much more you can do and how much more productive you can be. And you really think, what the heck was I doing running around like crazy, trying to meet all these people? But on the pro side, I'm in the healthcare space. So there's certainly some medical conferences that I go to, and I know some people, so they're really helpful for introducing me in other ways. I always try to have a poster or an abstract, so something that I can talk to while I'm there, so I have a reason for being there. Or if I'm invited to give a small talk or a pitch, then sure, those are also great because you can have a wide audience and yes, hopefully someone in the audience finds what you're talking about relevant. But yeah, just attending networking events for the sake of networking was not at all effective. But I'm also not that personality, so it might work for some people. But for me, I just found that to be not very helpful.
So you talked a little bit about mental health throughout. It's been something that has been tested very much, that you have, what I hear, grown and developed as well. I remember at some point you described it as a bit of like a giant mental health test. Can you speak a little bit about how your relationship with mental health has evolved and how you approach it practically or mentally now when you hit a low point?
Yeah, that took a lot to learn. And I think the mental health part of it was really, really tough. And it started with the investors, where you work so hard, you try to, you reach out to them for months to finally get someone. You just get no after no. And especially if you're trying to go through this fundraising phase, you basically stack your calendar with as many 30-minute calls with investors as you can. This is also the distracting part, so I should not have done that. But to hear so many no's in different ways, either about you personally, I mean, I had one, and I quote, end quote this, I don't understand why you think you have a chance. So that kind of feedback to people saying your solution won't work or whatever. And I had a fantastic opportunity through the Google for Startups program to have a psychologist that helped us, and you could ask for her time. And she only had a few hours, but she taught me something super powerful, which was, why do you give these people, the investors, so much power to judge you and what you've built? Like, what makes them that much more credible than you? And it was such a opening statement, because she was absolutely right. I had given them all of the credibility, or I had trusted so much more in what they had to say and how they judged me versus how I judged myself. And this kind of goes back to me having really low confidence and not thinking I could do it. So I didn't come in quite strong or defending myself. And you always have this power balance where you're the startup among so many others trying to pitch this investor, and they know they have the power. So you just feel like no one in these conversations. And it was actually also another good female founder of mine, a friend of mine, who said, we need to shift these power dynamics because it's not right. It's like, you've built something great, you believe in it, so they should be lucky to be able to invest in you. Like, flip that script. That was a super helpful trick. And also, if you cry in between investor meetings like I did, the other trick for free is basically you jump up and down and shake it out to reset your nervous system. I hope you don't have to do that, and I hope you're in a much better place than I was. But for anyone out there struggling like I was, that was a really, really, really good tip. Yeah, when the co-founders left, that was probably one of my lowest points, where you really felt alone. Like, all the initial fears I had, and we had a tough time as a company. We were just coming out of a pandemic, running out of money, trying to figure out what we can do. And that was when I felt so alone. And all the panic attacks came back. I mean, I had to physically, I've had so much gray hair since I started this. Lost a lot of hair, and the thing that I try to make myself be better at is I was really good at always criticizing myself. So I was looking at, where did I make a mistake and how can I correct that? And I kept being really critical instead of celebrating the wins. And so something nice would happen that week, and I was like, oh yeah, that's great. And then quickly forget and go back to focusing on what's not working and how can I do better and all these things. But if your mindset, if 90% of your thoughts are, how do I do better versus I'm doing okay, that really starts to eat you alive. And you never have a comparison of, am I doing okay? Because if you read those startup books, you didn't raise 30 million in year one, so you failed or whatever. And then you really start to doubt yourself in so many ways. So it's how do I know I'm okay? And how do I know I'm doing okay? And yeah, is it failing? I don't know, Those are all the questions you keep asking yourself. You have no one else to ask them to. You have no one checking you, so it's you're trying to hold yourself accountable, trying to hold yourself realistic, trying to make sure you're staying focused and moving forward. And one thing I try to now tell myself is, whenever there is a win, I write it down and I leave it on my desk so I have it as a reference. So if I'm being mean to myself, or if I'm being too critical, that I remember that there were really good things that happened and I focus on that. And we've also made it a habit that at the end of the year, we do a look back and we think about all the things that we've accomplished, because you're so in it every day, where you're just fighting, and you forget to poke your head up and look back and say wow, we've done a phenomenal amount of things with very little. That's been one key thing. I stopped tracking all the competitors too. That was so unhealthy. Don't ever do that. It's like, especially when you see them get 20 million, 30 million, 80 million, they're like, oh, we're competing. How much did you raise? You're like, 300,000. Like, we are not on the same level. But it's not healthy to compare yourself to them, and that doesn't really do anyone a world of good. So a couple things that help there, friends and family, making sure to take time for that and not forget who you are throughout this whole process, because it's so easy, especially when you love what you're doing and you want to move it forward and you're passionate about it, that I just want more of my time. That's all I need is more of my time on this. And you let relationships drop because of that. And that was a conscious decision, was no, I need to protect my evenings. And again, you think like, oh, I can't because that's when I can talk to the US, and I should be on these calls and networking and selling or whatever. But it's not right, and it's not fair to your partner, it's not fair to your friends, and it's not fair to yourself. And you get so burnt out. So burnt out. I was probably the worst friend and everything, family member for about 2 years of this. But I think now bringing that back in has helped a lot. Not trying to compare myself, not looking at these books. That's like burning those books actually is really therapeutic. It's a tough one because it's such a lonely journey, and you really have no metrics of if you're doing okay. And if you thought the metric was, did I get investment, right? And am I doing a Series A and then a Series B and then a Series C? And when you don't have that journey, then it's like everything kind of falls apart in your mind. And that's what I really, really struggled with. But to any women listening, just want to say you're doing great. The funding was never going to go to us anyway. So focus on your business, build a great business, and then we're all going to start a fund, and we're all going to invest in female founders, and we're going to change that 2%. That would be my small advice, and I hope that helps somebody out there.
You mentioned that it's a very lonely journey. Over time, you also learn to bring back other parts of your life, your family, your friends. Are there any other folks or communities or so that help you stay grounded in this journey?
Oh my God, the other female founders. Yeah, they have been everything. Especially if you have someone who's a few years ahead of you, who's been doing it. Like I said, there's that one, she was so amazing. I'm so lucky that we somehow crossed paths, but she was the one who kind of like slapped me like, what are you doing? Don't waste your time. Or, you feel like, oh, I'm not doing a good job. I didn't succeed in a Series A, a Series B, or whatever. And they help you stay grounded of, hey, you did this, did you see that? You've presented this kind of data, you've made this partnership, you've had this impact on people's lives. Like, isn't that more important? And you think like, yeah. Or they've gone through it and they know the frustration. I know how heartbreaking it can be, how difficult it is. I mean, and then you have this always like cognitive dissonance. You go to these events and everyone pretends like having a startup is so amazing. You're sitting there going like, really? Like, are we in different worlds? And I have to say, like, with female founders, like, we're so honest with each other. Everyone I've met, it's like, there's no like competing or someone needs to try to show off or whatever. It's just like, they're so open, honest, and so helpful. Just like helping you get connected, whatever they can do. Everyone I've met has been like, how can I help? That's their first question. And I always try to make sure that's what I return it with too. But that's been the most beautiful, beautiful community, because female founders, we just have our own journey that is so different from what the men go through. And maybe those books are for them. I don't know. I don't have that experience. But from the side of what women are going through when they try to build businesses, the comments we get, the opportunities we don't get, those are all very real. And once you feel so alone in it if you don't talk about it. And when you talk about it, you see you're not alone. But you don't read this stuff. Like when I had the co-founders leaving, it was super tough. They were really good friends and they had to, and I totally understand it. But everything you read is like, you're done. Like when you have co-founders leave, you're done. And you don't find people talking about it. It was finally on like some deep Reddit thread where I found that people had it happen and survived, and I thought like I had this glimpse of hope. Oh my God, maybe. So I just wish we were all so much more honest about our journeys, how it's going for us, how difficult it is, and we could lean on each other. But I'd say, yeah, if you're a female founder, definitely find your crew. People will be going through it, and if you're open and honest and talking about it, I think we can make it a lot healthier for all the other women out there.
Thanks, Danielle. Even if you're not building the same company, there's others that are building too. And it's just about, how do you create those opportunities for folks to connect so that you can, like, your paths do cross, right? So to close out, how do you now define success for both Ancora AI and for yourself?
So in Core AI, I finally figured it out, which is that if I'm helping people, that is a success. I don't have a financial goal of an exit of 6 million. I've put too much into this, and my whole goal with it was to do my little part of trying to change healthcare. So if people are using our tool and are able to help get access to care, that is success for Ancora, full stop. And I'm glad, I feel every day so far like that is successful, maybe not in the conventional Steve Jobs, whatever this really toxic world we have, like that kind of success. But for me personally, that was really important. And then for me as a person, yeah, that one was really tough because I had thought I had given up so much. I've given up now like 7 years with a really nice salary, and you think of your pension and you think of life and all the follow-on effects and how you haven't been in the real workforce. Can you ever make it back? I mean, things that really kind of haunt you at night, to be totally honest. And a good friend of mine, she kind of shook me up and she said, I've spent $150,000 on my MBA. It's like, and Danielle, you're like living 5 times the experience of an MBA. She's like, so think of all the new networks that you've made, all the experiences you've had. Just like, I had to go pay to try to have it. It's like, so think of it as like a giant MBA and learning. And so now I've reframed myself to say, am I working on something that I find really rewarding and like I'm learning something new? And that's something I'm really fortunate to say that every day it's something new. I see the reward, and I can continue building something that I love. And if I can stay with that, then I will be very happy. I would love that we had a big exit, but we'll see what happens. I've learned the world is out of my hands, and the biggest help I ever got, or comment, was from one of my advisors who said, one of the most important ingredients in a startup success is luck. And luck is so out of your hands. So like, don't take it personally. Like, it's not a failure on you, it's not a failure on your company, but there is a little bit of luck that needs to happen for a startup to really launch, and you can't control that. And so I'm trying not to control what I can't control because it's just gonna eat me alive. So it's, am I learning? Am I doing good things? Am I working with cool people? And with Ancora, are we making a difference? And if people don't need it or not making a difference, that'll definitely be my big signal that I can call it. But I have to learn to be much kinder to myself and the journey, and recognize all the things that I've learned and now who I've been able to become because of it. So trying to keep that positive lens.
Thanks so much for sharing that and for sharing your journey so openly, so vulnerably. It's part of the why behind this series, to have conversations, to understand what happens behind the scenes. So thank you, Danielle, for sharing that. And you're here, you're doing it, and you're keeping on building. And in the end, the goal is to keep going, right? And so if you can keep going, it means that there's some sustainability and some impact there. And then the rest is, there's always fluctuations, from a very economic perspective, cycles and whatnot, but the goal is always to keep going. So I wish that for you in a way that is both impactful, fulfilling, both for you and the patients that you help that are in such great need. Thanks a lot.
Oh, thank you, Stephanie. And I hope anyone listening, get the help you need, and choose kindness. It's really easy to be critical, but choose kindness with yourself first and foremost.